Imagine my daughter threw a lavish birthday party for my granddaughter with 300 guests. But when I arrived, the security guard said, "Sorry, this party is for close family only." I smiled, made one phone call, and every guest was in shock. "Sir, I'm sorry, but I have strict instructions." That's what he told me, standing there at the entrance like he had all the authority in the world. Welcome back to Dad's Revenge. I'm glad you're here for this one. Before we get into the story, drop a single word in the comments right now that describes where your head is at today. Just one word. Whatever you're carrying into this moment, I want to know. This story is a dramatized account with certain elements shaped for the audio format and narrative flow. Any resemblance to specific real people or events is purely coincidental. What matters is the truth at the heart of it. No exceptions today. His palm came flat against my sternum the moment I moved toward the wrought iron security gate. Past his shoulder through walls of glass that ran floor to ceiling, I counted what had to be 300 people filling my granddaughter's 10th birthday celebration. Balloons drifted upward toward the vaulted skylight atrium. Kids darted through a forest of adult legs and expensive fabric. Instructions. I tucked the carefully wrapped package tighter under my arm, $200 worth of professional art supplies for Lily, chosen because I knew her gift. Derek filled that doorway in a charcoal Hugo Boss suit that ran more than my monthly pension check. The BMW X7 sat polished in the drive behind him, the same $80,000 machine I'd bankrolled with my emergency savings the year before. Vince. He used that oiled sales floor cadence, the one I'd cataloged over years of Sunday dinners. I thought we were on the same page about this. We were on no page together. My hands rough from decades of honest work closed around Lily's gift. Tell me, since when does a little girl's birthday party need a hired doorman? Look, it's complicated. We're keeping attendance to immediate family. You know how too many people can overwhelm the kids. Derek waved a hand toward the window behind him, where a DJ was working a crowd of strangers who moved freely through his living room. The March sun made the lineup on his street impossible to ignore my 12-year-old Honda Accord, parked among a procession of Mercedes, Audis, and Lexuses. Manicured lawns rolled between houses that could each buy and sell my modest Worthington home twice over. Immediate family. A woman in Louboutin heels sprinted after a toddler beyond the glass. Derek. I don't know half those faces. Business associates Vince. Critical nodes in my career. Advancement trajectory. Distractions are something we simply can't afford right now. The guard beside him rocked on his heels. Sir, I'm just following orders. Distractions. I let the word hang there a moment. That's your word for Lily's grandfather. Derek's manicured fingers drummed a slow rhythm on the doorframe. Look, you know how Lily gets when there's too much stimulation in the room? Competing emotional dynamics. We're managing her developmental environment. Behind the glass, Lily moved into view, wearing a pale blue tulle dress that likely cost more than my weekly groceries. She was laughing at something a stranger had said, face open and radiant. My chest pulled tight at the sight of her joy. Joy I wasn't being allowed anywhere near. She's counting on me being here. I stepped closer. I gave her my word. Words shift, Vince. Market conditions evolve. The parameters of this situation have changed. Derek's voice dropped to something harder. The decision matrix has been updated. Every phrase hit like a knuckle against bone. This man was locking me out of my own granddaughter's life and filing it under corporate restructuring. I set Lily's gift down against the gatepost. My hands were trembling, nothing to do with age, everything to do with a fury so clean and white-hot it pressed against my ribs. The guard found something to look at across the street. You'll regret this, I told him, keeping it low. Derek laughed. What does that mean exactly? You gonna call corporate on me? I turned from my car and said nothing more. There's a kind of dignity that only silence can preserve. The bass from his DJ system swelled behind me, burying whatever remained of my granddaughter's laughter somewhere I couldn't reach. My hand shook, finding the right key. Glancing back in the rear view, I caught Derek already moving inside, probably already spinning the story, for some guest already framing it as a difficult family matter handled cleanly. Lily's gift sat at the base of his gate like an object he'd already disposed of. I drove away without turning around, both hands rigid on the wheel. That 15-minute trip home stretched like an hour. Every red light was a courtroom, where I replayed Derek's performance, the dismissal dressed in management language, the cruelty delivered with a straight back and a straight face. My hands were still unsteady when I killed the engine in my own drive. I put the kettle on out of habit. Ritual is its own kind of steadying force. But once I sat down at my scarred oak kitchen table, hemmed in by 40 years of things that had meant something, the hurt finished its conversion became something colder and harder and more useful. I went to the filing cabinet and pulled the manila folder labeled Claudia's Support. Engineer's Reflex. Over the years, I had logged every transaction, every favor requested, every sacrifice extended without condition. 8 years back, Claudia had called me sobbing. Post-birth complications, she explained, medical costs stacking up faster than Derek's commissions could absorb. Dad, I can't manage this. $5,000 or they're sending Lily's delivery bill to collections. The check was written before the afternoon was out. My daughter was in trouble. My granddaughter's beginning was at stake. What grandfather on earth wouldn't drain his savings for? That 6 years back, it was the house. Claudia's voice thin and urgent on the line, explaining how their dream home was in reach, but the closing gap was impossible. $15,000, Dad. Just this once, and we'll never come to you again. Derek's promotion was all but certain next quarter, she said. I cleaned out my emergency fund without a pause. Family first. It always came first, more so after Irene died, and left me holding both roles, grandfather and safety net. 4 years ago, brought what they called an opportunity. Derek had smooth-talked me through Lily's exceptional artistic gifts. Monthly sessions with the right instructor would change everything for her. $300 a month, an investment in your granddaughter's future, Vince. She's gifted in ways you don't see every generation. This is her path. I started the automatic transfers the same week. Lily's drawings had genuinely stopped me in my tracks more than once. If real instruction was the difference, I'd pay for it gladly. What else does a man save money for? 2 years back came the largest ask, yet framed with genuine desperation. Mortgage payments behind, foreclosure filing imminent. Lily's home at risk, $25,000. Dad, this is the mortgage company's last number before proceedings start. We can't have Lily uprooted from everything she knows. I tapped the retirement fund, reasoning it through. I was buying her childhood the rooms, she'd remember the yard, where she'd grow into the person she was supposed to become. Spreading everything across the table, now I ran the full accounting, bank statements, voided checks, records of every automatic transfer. The total the calculator landed on was $97,000 across 4 years. And there, slotted between mortgage receipts, I found a BMW dealership invoice, March 15th, 2021. The identical date Claudia had phoned about the medical emergency. The same afternoon, I'd moved $25,000 out of retirement. Derek's X7. $80,000. Bought on my dime while he narrated a story about losing the house. I held the page and felt the whole architecture assemble itself, the way a structural diagram suddenly makes sense when you see the load-bearing points. The art class withdrawals had kept running months after Lily had stopped referring to lessons at all. Medical claims for conditions that never generated a follow-up visit. A foreclosure crisis that evaporated without leaving any mark on the way they lived. Not $1 had gone where I'd sent it. All of it siphoned off, rerouted through false emergencies and manufactured crises. My own affection for Lily turned into the mechanism that made it work. Something between grief and cold fury settled behind my sternum. The man who had believed he was standing behind his family had simply been standing in front of an ATM they'd learned to operate. Every alarm had been staged. Every rescue call had been scripted. I picked up my phone, put it back down, looked at my balance. There was enough to move. The question was what movement looked like for a 67-year-old retired engineer who just confirmed that his family spent 4 years running a coordinated deception. The BMW receipt gave me the answer. They had taken my trust and made it a tool. They'd held Lily out like a compass point and used my love for her to steer me. My readiness to help had been their operating budget. Let me show them what it looks like when that readiness ends. 30 seconds with my hand over the phone, then the decision locked in place. 4 years of deliberate fraud warranted a response built the same way, deliberate, layered, precise. I spread the bank documents out and moved through account numbers the way I'd once moved through engineering schematics. Chase Bank first. 2 minutes on hold, then a representative named Donna came on. Good afternoon, Mr. Hathaway. How can I help you today? I need to flag suspicious activity on my account. Unauthorized use by a family member. I kept the register even and professional throughout. The documentation I have points to a sustained pattern of financial misuse. Of course, sir. Can you walk me through your verification? I gave her everything: social security digits, account numbers, security questions, with the same methodical precision I'd carried through 35 years at Lockheed Martin. Mr. Hathaway, I'm looking at a series of recurring transfers to a Derek Colton going back several years. Can you tell me what your concern is? I've recently uncovered evidence that these transfers were obtained through false representations. I can document that funds presented as emergency needs were redirected toward personal luxury items. I'm asking for an immediate hold on any further payments or transfers to that individual. Donna's register shifted, measured professional alert. Understood, sir. That's a serious matter. I can place a fraud protection hold right now. Do you have a police report or case reference? Not at this stage, but I have a full paper trail: statements, receipts, and written documentation of the misrepresentations. I'll file formal complaints wherever required. Noted. Your case number is CH243167842. The hold goes active within 2 hours and will block all outgoing transactions to the named party. Would you like me to connect you with the fraud investigation team? Not right now. Stopping the outflow is what matters at this moment. The second call was a different kind of problem. Bank of America required careful handling. Claudia held legitimate access through joint structures I had set up years earlier with entirely different intentions. After another wait, Representative Leon answered. Bank of America Fraud Prevention. Leon speaking. I need to raise concerns about a family account arrangement. My daughter has valid access to the account, but I have reason to believe her husband has been directing her to request transfers that are not what they were represented to be. Sir, I understand that's a sensitive situation. What exactly are you asking us to do? Suspend all cards tied to contributions I've made toward their household accounts. I need to pull my financial authorization until I can build proper oversight back into the arrangement. Leon walked me through the mechanics, how joint account protections actually functioned, what paperwork permanent changes would require, more involved than the Chase situation, but entirely doable. Case number BAC 243164891. Temporary restrictions go live in roughly 90 minutes. Confirmation will reach you by email and post. Both calls done. I set the phone on the table with something close to satisfaction, not revenge. Fiscal responsibility. The money was mine. The authorization was mine to withdraw. Nobody had the right to redirect my assets through fabricated emergencies. The kitchen clock read 5:15 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon. The party at Derek's would be in full swing. Right about now, Derek performing the generous host, working the room with funds he'd bled from me through 4 years of careful, calculated lying. In an hour or so, when caterers came looking for payment, when the entertainment bill landed, when all those business associates expected the level of event Derek had sold them on his cards would start bouncing, the emergency calls would follow. Vendors getting confused explanations. Professional humiliation rolling out in front of precisely the networking contacts he'd rated above his daughter's relationship with her grandfather. I looked at the framed photograph of Lily on my mantle, her gap-toothed grin from 2 Christmases back, the one where she'd held up her latest drawing for me like a trophy. She deserved a father who didn't lie and steal. She deserved a grandfather who didn't simply absorb the damage. The phone sat quiet on my table. In 45 minutes, it would start ringing. Desperate voices, manufactured emergencies. Only this time, I wasn't the man walking into them unprepared. My engineering mind had located the fault in the system. Now came the repair. 6:15 p.m. I checked my watch against the banking notification glowing on the phone screen. 2 hours and 15 minutes since those calls were made. The freezes should be fully in force. Case status active. CH 243167842. The Chase app confirmed it. Bank of America showed parallel verification below it. Both institutions had executed my fraud protection requests with the kind of operational efficiency I'd spent 35 years expecting from financial systems. The satisfaction wasn't what revenge feels like. Cleaner than that. More like the moment an engineering solution proves out and every variable falls exactly where you calculated it would. I settled into Irene's old armchair, the one position to face the window and the quiet street beyond. Evening light on a Saturday filtered through the curtains she'd made 15 years ago. The contrast with Derek's neighborhood was almost absurd. No hired security standing post out front. No row of imported vehicles glossed up on the curb. My phone sat on the side table where I could reach it. Derek would call. No way around it. Restaurant bills at a venue like that typically process between 7 and 7:30 for large party events. The timing was arithmetic. Predictable. Something the engineering side of my brain had already mapped out completely. 300 guests at an upscale venue catering alone would land around 15,000. Stack on entertainment decor and the room rental. Derek was staring down a $25,000 tab at minimum, money he'd intended to cover, with cards drawing from accounts I'd been quietly filling for years. Part of me felt it like a stone in my chest, the thought of Lily watching her party come apart. But another part, the part that had absorbed 4 years of coordinated deception, understood that this reckoning was necessary. Not only for Derek, for Claudia too. She needed to see clearly who she'd built a life with and what he'd been doing with her father's trust. Irene used to say, Vince, sometimes being kind means refusing to enable bad behavior. For years I'd nodded along without really grasping it. Now I did. Every dollar I'd handed over had simply given Derek more room to operate, more room to deceive, more room to invent the next crisis. I opened Google Maps and searched luxury restaurants in New Albany. The Lantern House came up first. 4 stars, $4 signs, exactly the stage Derek would choose to perform wealth he'd borrowed from his father-in-law in front of 300 business contacts. The restaurant's number sat there on my screen. A plan took shape the way a technical drawing does, line by line, each element placed with purpose. I dialed, adjusting my tone to the formal register I'd carried into Lockheed Martin boardrooms for 3.5 decades. The Lantern House, this is manager Donna speaking. Good evening, Donna. I'm contacting you regarding fraud alert protocols for your establishment. We've received reports of compromised payment accounts being used for a sizable party reservation this evening. Oh, that's quite concerning, sir. What can you tell me, customer name Derek Colton party, of approximately 300 guests? Several financial institutions have flagged unusual activity on associated accounts. We'd strongly recommend additional payment verification before processing any charges this evening. Of course, sir. I'll alert our payment team right away and make sure extra verification steps are in place before we run anything. Thank you for letting us know. Simply doing what's necessary to protect businesses from fraudulent activity. I put the phone down and sat with it for a moment, something approaching satisfaction, not revenge, fraud prevention. Precisely what any responsible party does when they uncover systematic account misuse. 7:25 p.m. The party would be peaking by now, children burning through sugar highs, adults circulating with expensive wine, Derek moving through the room like a man who'd earned what surrounded him, making promises to vendors that nothing in his wallet could keep. My phone sat still on the table. In the kitchen, Lily's abandoned gift receipt still lay in the spread of documents I'd pulled from the filing cabinet, a $200 art set for a granddaughter I hadn't been allowed near. The engineering problem was nearly resolved. Every pressure point identified, every variable addressed. What remained was the most satisfying phase of any well-constructed system. Watching it perform exactly as designed. It rang at exactly 7:30. Derek's name lit up the screen like a signal I'd been tracking all evening. I let it go 3 times before picking up. Setting the pace from the first word matters. Hello, Derek. Vince. That edge in his voice was something new, pulled tight working to stay casual, not quite making it. Party noise bled through behind him. Glasses children, the performed warmth of a gathering mid-swing. Hey, listen, I'm running into some technical trouble with the banking system. Strange computer glitches. Technology, right? I activated the recording function on my phone, a habit carried over from Lockheed Martin, where any conversation worth having was worth documenting. Technical trouble. That does sound frustrating. Right, exactly. Look, my cards won't process and I need some emergency help. Family helping family. Can you bring $3,000 in cash? I'm at the Lantern House in New Albany. Interesting request. My voice stayed flat measured. What specifically requires $3,000 tonight? Don't play games, Vince. I have 300 people here waiting to eat, and the restaurant system is having problems. I need liquidity now. 300 people. The same head count I'd seen through his windows, the same number he'd described as intimate family, only when he'd had me turned away at the gate. It landed with an edge like vinegar on the back of the throat. "Yes," I said evenly. "Those same 300 people you were referring to when you told me it was a small family gathering." Silence. When he came back, the desperation had sharpened into something more like demand. "Fine, you want to revisit old decisions? Right now, I need financial backing, and you're the most logical option available. Are you bringing the money or not? That depends. What's become of your usual financing arrangements? A sales manager with your income and track record ought to have adequate credit capacity. Don't be sarcastic." He was losing the edges of it now the composure was going. "Every card I have is getting declined. The manager is standing here asking for collateral. I had to hand over my Rolex just to hold them off long enough to call you. His Rolex. The Breitling Navitimer, worth $18,000, purchased during our most recent mortgage emergency. One more thing I'd unknowingly paid for through a manufactured family crisis. How unfortunate. Have you tried your business associates? Surely those critical networking contacts could step in with temporary liquidity support. Vince, stop. I'm warning you right now. Stop playing these stupid games." The front was gone. "If you don't come through for me right now, there will be consequences. Serious consequences for your access to Lily." And there it was. The lever he'd always reached for my granddaughter held out as the price of my cooperation. "Are you threatening to cut off my access to Lily?" I asked, keeping my recording voice deliberate and unhurried. "I'm describing reality. Claudia follows my lead on family decisions. If you want to keep grandfather privileges, you have 30 minutes to get here with that money." Grandfather privileges. Those two words landed like something dropped from height. "You mean the privileges you stripped from me this afternoon when you stationed a guard at your gate to turn me away from my granddaughter's birthday party? That was entirely different. This is about family loyalty, not relitigating petty grievances." Loyalty. I nearly said it out loud, the laugh that almost came with it. "Derek, over 4 years, you've drawn $97,000 from me through false emergencies and stories built on nothing. The loyalty has been running in one direction only." Dead quiet. I could feel him recalibrating on the other end, trying to work out exactly how much I knew, what I'd documented, how far this went. "You've been logging our family financial requests." His voice came back cold, surgical. "That's a fairly obsessive response from someone who claimed to be helping out of love. I maintain records engineers habit, bank statements, canceled checks, receipts, including the BMW purchase invoice from the same date you told me you needed $25,000 for medical bills." A longer pause this time. The restaurant noise in the background seemed to dim, as though he'd stepped away somewhere more private. "Bring the money, Vince or you will never see Lily again. Claudia will understand completely why we need to shield our daughter from an unstable family member who surveils us and keeps obsessive financial records." The line cut off with a hard click. What comes next changed everything, and I mean everything. For 4 years I had been patient, trusting, generous. But I was about to find out exactly what that trust had bought. If someone you loved had been quietly working against you, would you confront them the moment you found out, or would you wait and let the evidence build first? I sat in Irene's chair staring at the recording indicator on my phone, 37 minutes of captured conversation. Every threat, every admission, every manipulation tactic preserved in Derek's own voice. Legal, recorded, indisputable documentation of emotional coercion, financial exploitation, and explicit threats to block my access to my granddaughter. The engineering problem had just handed me its own solution. Played back through my phone speaker, the audio was crystalline. Derek's voice strained, escalating, increasingly desperate, filled the living room like a confession he'd broadcast from his own conscience. "You'll never see Lily again. Claudia will understand why we need to protect our daughter from unstable family members." 37 minutes of threats, admissions, and manipulation on record. Evidence that would carry far more weight than any grandfather's account of unfair treatment, legal proof of what Irene used to call showing someone their true face. I copied the file to my computer, backed it to cloud storage, and sent a time-stamped copy to my own email. 3 decades in engineering had impressed on me the irreplaceable value of redundant records. 8:15 p.m. The party would be in full collapse by now. Vendors looking for payment, guests watching Derek's public unraveling, and somewhere in the middle of it, Lily confused about why her celebration had gone sideways. my chest pulled tight at the thought of her disappointment. But children are more resilient than we give them credit for. She'd carry the memory of her party, not the financial disaster that swallowed it. What mattered more, the thing that needed fixing, was stopping the pattern from continuing. She couldn't grow up with a father who treated the people who loved him as resources to be mined. I opened my laptop and drafted an email to Paula Renwick, the family law attorney Garrett had mentioned over Christmas dinner. Her website listed 15 years of work in custody disputes, grandparents' rights and financial abuse cases, with an 85% success rate across complex family matters. The subject line required no deliberation, documented financial abuse, and grandparent access, denial, urgent consultation required. I attached the recording, 4 years of bank statements mapping the deception receipts demonstrating that emergency funds had gone toward luxury purchases, and copies of Derek's messages requesting various forms of family assistance over time. The picture they formed together was unambiguous. Calculated exploitation of an elderly widower's generosity, emotional blackmail, using a grandchild as the lever, financial fraud, operating under cover of family crisis. Irene's photograph watched me from the mantel as I typed. She'd always said I was too ready to assume the best in people. But she'd also taught me that once you saw someone's real nature clearly looking away, made you a participant in whatever they did next. Family loyalty versus petty grudges. Derek's own framing as though logging 4 years of systematic theft counted as petty, as though fighting to ensure my granddaughter didn't grow up believing that love had a price tag, and family bonds were negotiable assets counted as grudges. My phone buzzed. Claudia's number. Dad, Derek says you're having some kind of breakdown and making wild accusations. He's worried about your mental state. Maybe we should talk. I read it twice, hearing Derek's cadence underneath every word. He'd reached her first, shaped the story, positioned himself as the level-headed family member managing an unstable elderly relative. Clever. Not clever enough. I screenshotted Claudia's message and filed it alongside Paula Renwick's growing case package. More evidence of Derek's methods this time, deploying his own wife to gaslight her father. The email to Paula Renwick was complete. Thorough, documented, legally grounded. I held my cursor over the send button for 30 seconds. Pressing it would move this from family conflict into legal action, no reversing it. But Derek had set that course himself. He'd done it when he threatened to sever me from Lily permanently. He'd done it across 4 years of taking my money while performing gratitude. He'd done it when he coached Claudia to cast doubt on my mental state, rather than acknowledge his documented theft. I pressed send. The laptop confirmed. Legal machinery now engaged. Evidence secured. Professional counsel brought in. The solution was structurally complete pressure applied at the load-bearing points of Derek's carefully assembled fiction. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Claudia. Dad, please call me. We need to talk about what happened tonight. Not yet. First came Lily's school. Monday morning meet, her teachers established myself as a consistent and grounded presence in her life, before Derek could contaminate those relationships too. Then I'd call Claudia, but on my terms with the full file behind me. Sunday morning, I organized every document into labeled folders, dates, amounts, categories, all sequenced chronologically. The dining room table became a courtroom exhibit. 8 years of methodical deception, laid out in order, the kind of presentation you'd put before a jury. Claudia phoned at 10 a.m. Dad, can you come by? We need to talk about last night. Derek thinks maybe there's something we can work out. The same house where I'd been turned away at the gate the day before. But the dynamic had shifted entirely. Yesterday I'd come as a hopeful grandfather carrying a gift. Today I arrived as someone holding the evidence. Claudia opened the door, looking hollowed-out dark circles, hair uncombed, still wearing clothes from the night before. Behind her, the house bore the marks of a derailed event. Champagne glasses left on surfaces, balloons hanging limp from door frames. Dad, I'm so glad you're here. I don't understand what went wrong with the payment systems last night. I set my folders on their kitchen table. Where's Lily upstairs with her homework? She keeps asking why you weren't at her party. Claudia's voice fractured slightly. I didn't know how to answer her. Derek appeared from the living room, working to project his usual confidence, but moving like a man who had miscalculated the ice thickness. The charcoal Hugo Boss suit had been traded for jeans and a rumpled polo. The Breitling Navi timer, worth $18,000, was conspicuously absent from his wrist. Vince, good that you came. Look, yesterday was unfortunate, but we're family. I have to think there's a way to sort out whatever glitch hit the banking systems. I opened the first folder bank statements going back to 2019, each flag transaction marked in yellow. Technical glitch. That's a creative description of 4 years of documented fraud. Claudia stepped closer, reading over my shoulder. Dad, what am I looking at? Every check I wrote to support this household. Every emergency request, every manufactured crisis that required my money. I spread receipts across their quartz countertop, each paired with the actual purchase made using those same funds. The BMW X7 dealership invoice was on top, March 15th, 2021. Right beside it, the transcript of Claudia's tearful call from that same afternoon, asking for $25,000 to cover Lily's birth complications. Claudia's color drained. Derek, this can't be what it looks like. Everything went toward the family, Derek said, moving fast. Safe transportation. Lily needs dependable vehicles for her school activities. I opened the next folder. Lily's art class is $300 a month for specialized instruction. The receipts showed the automatic withdrawals continuing 18 months past, the point when Lily had mentioned she'd stopped going to lessons. Those were advanced preparatory sessions Derek cut in, an investment in her long-term artistic development. Claudia, I said, keeping my voice level, look at the pattern. Every emergency call corresponds to a major purchase within 48 hours. She lowered herself into a kitchen chair, working through the timeline I'd laid out. Emergency medical funds flowing into jewelry purchases. Mortgage rescue money redirected into vacation expenses. Her husband had systematically converted her father's love for his granddaughter into a private line of credit. $97,000. I said, setting the calculated summary in front of them both. 8 years of invented emergencies and fictional crises. That cracked it. Derek's composure gave way. You want to put every family decision under a microscope. Go ahead, everything I did was for Claudia and Lily. You think I wanted to keep coming to you with my hand out. You wanted to keep lying about what the hand was for. Lily appeared at the top of the stairs in her pajamas. Mommy, why is everyone shouting? Claudia was on her feet immediately. Go back to your room, sweetheart. The grown-ups are just talking. But why wasn't Grandpa at my party yesterday? Did I do something bad? The question floated there unanswered, an innocent 10-year-old trying to make sense of why the person who loved her most hadn't been there while her father spent stolen money impressing strangers. Derek turned to Claudia, voice dropping toward desperation. You have to decide. Your father is here to burn our marriage down over financial disagreements. I gathered the documents, stacking each folder with the same precision I'd once used on engineering blueprints. I want full repayment, all $97,000, plus interest calculated at current banking rates. That's not possible, Derek said. Those were gifts obtained under false pretenses through deliberate lies. I closed the last folder. You have until end of business tomorrow to bring me a repayment schedule. Claudia stared at the cleared table. Dad, I don't know what to say. Tell me you'll protect Lily from growing up believing this is how people treat each other. Derek trailed me toward the door. Vince, we can find a way through this. Payment arrangements? Installments? I stopped at the threshold. You turned my love for Lily into a weapon and used it against me. There is nothing left to negotiate. I walked to my car. Through the window, I could see Claudia watching, and behind her Derek moving quickly through the room, already running calculations. I had no doubt on whatever could be converted to cash first. The folders were on my passenger seat. Tomorrow, Paula Renwick would begin converting this family disaster into a legal case. Monday, I knew exactly what step came next. The meeting with Claudia had removed every remaining doubt about Derek's guilt. His desperate justifications and hollow excuses revealed a man fully caught in his own web. I spent an hour organizing everything into a professional presentation, then drove downtown to High Street. The 40-minute trip from suburban Worthington into Columbus's financial district felt like crossing from family drama into serious legal territory. Renwick and Associates occupied the 19th floor of a glass tower, reaching up toward March clouds. The reception area displayed awards, certifications, and the quiet authority that accumulates over 15 years of successful family law practice. Paula Renwick met me in a corner office with a view of the river. 50s sharp gray suit, a no-nonsense handshake that said, competence without warmth. Behind her desk, case files were stacked with military order. Mr. Hathaway. Your email was remarkably thorough. I've gone through your preliminary documentation, and what I'm seeing is textbook family financial abuse. I opened my briefcase and laid out folders organized by date and category. I brought everything: bank statements, receipts, recorded conversations, text message, screenshots. Paula photographed each document with professional equipment, building a digital case file while putting targeted questions to me about dates, amounts, and the specific methods Derek had used. Your record keeping is exemplary, she said, pausing over the BMW purchase receipt. Most fraud cases within families come in without anything close to this level of documentation. The systematic character here is particularly egregious, not opportunistic taking, but deliberate long-term manipulation. What are my realistic prospects for full recovery given documentation, this complete 90% success rate for full restitution? She settled back in her chair. The recorded call alone, where he threatens to permanently cut off your access to your granddaughter, that constitutes emotional coercion and extortion on its face. Paula mapped out our approach with the kind of precision I'd valued in engineering consultations. Lead with a formal demand letter, allowing 72 hours for a response. If that goes unanswered, file civil recovery proceedings, while pursuing parallel criminal fraud charges. I'll be direct with you, Mr. Hathaway. Going down this road will likely end their marriage. Derek's conduct points to deep-seated financial irresponsibility. Claudia will face hard choices about her path forward. It's already broken. I'm simply putting the record straight. She drafted a demand letter on firm letterhead, 3 pages itemizing the $97,000 plus accrued interest and legal fees. The wording was exacting professional and left nothing soft. Fraudulent misrepresentation of family emergencies, systematic theft through emotional manipulation, criminal charges to follow if the civil demands went unmet. Certified delivery goes out this afternoon, Paula confirmed. He'll have it in his hands tomorrow morning with a signature on file. The 72-hour window opens the moment delivery is confirmed. The letter had weight to it. 3 pages of precise legal language that converted 4 years of family betrayal into actionable civil claims documentation that Derek's smooth talking couldn't redirect or explain away. One more question, I said, as I signed the retainer agreement. What if he simply files for bankruptcy to escape payment? We've accounted for that. Given the fraudulent basis of his actions, these debts are non-dischargeable under federal bankruptcy law. You cannot steal through deception and then plead inability to repay. Walking out of the law office, I felt the weight of formal proceedings now underway. No more family arguments or emotional leverage plays. Just documented evidence, legal deadlines, and professional consequences for systematic theft. The certified letter would land at Derek's door tomorrow morning. By Wednesday afternoon, he would need to produce a full repayment plan or stand before a civil court where every lie he'd told would be examined in detail. I drove back through Columbus traffic with the signed documents secure in my briefcase. The engineering problem was approaching its resolution. Every pressure point identified, systematic action initiated, unavoidable consequences now in motion. Tomorrow, Derek would discover the difference between a family quarrel and legal reality. 7 p.m. I was in my living room watching the evening news when my phone rang. Garrett's name on the screen brought immediate relief. My son's voice always carried the steady competence that his medical training had built into him. Dad, Claudia called me this afternoon. She told me what happened. His tone held concern alongside something harder. I want you to know I'm completely on your side. I reached for the remote and killed the volume. Garrett, I don't want to pull you into the middle of family conflict. Dad, stop. This isn't a conflict. This is fraud. Derek has been systematically taking from you for years, and I should have caught it sooner. A pause then, the sound of a hospital intercom somewhere behind him. I'm calling from the break room between procedures, but this couldn't wait. You had suspicions. Professional instinct. In my work, I see these patterns: patients who inflate symptoms for medication, family members who exploit older relatives. Derek's requests always struck me as too convenient, too perfectly timed. Garrett walked me through his conversation with Claudia earlier that day. She'd called him in tears, torn between loyalty to her father and loyalty to her husband, overwhelmed by the evidence I'd laid in front of her. She's frightened, Dad. 8 years of marriage to someone who turns out to have been running a long con. She doesn't know who to trust anymore. What did you tell her? That her father is the most honest person I've ever known. And if you say Derek took $97,000, then Derek took $97,000. His voice carried the weight of someone accustomed to making calls that matter. I also told her that keeping Lily safe comes before protecting Derek's reputation. That support hit harder than I expected. Years of quietly wondering whether family loyalty was truly on my side, and here was my son answering it plainly. Garrett had always been my steady one. Medical school, surgical training, a practice built on discipline and precision. His word carried real authority for me. I can be on a flight tomorrow if you need someone there for court, he went on. My schedule has room for a family situation like this. It may not come to that. The attorney sent the demand letter today. Good. He needs to face what he's done. A beat of quiet. Dad, I'm proud of you for not letting this go. Mom would be proud too. She always said your generosity was also your vulnerability. Irene had said exactly that, warned me about people who might take advantage of how readily I trusted. I never pictured that person being my own son-in-law. Garrett, what if Claudia decides to stay with him in spite of everything? Then we stand by her decision while making sure you're protected. But honestly, the Claudia I spoke to today sounded furious at being lied to, not defensive of the man who lied. He was already booking a Wednesday flight, rearranging his surgical schedule to be present before any potential court deadlines. Professional obligations set aside to make sure his father didn't walk into this alone. I should have come around more, he said. Should have been paying closer attention to what Derek was doing. You have your own life in Seattle, a career that matters real responsibilities. Nothing matters more than family. Actual family, not people who treat relatives as a budget line item. The hospital intercom called for Dr. Hathaway. Dad, I have to go. Someone needs me in the OR, but I'll call you tomorrow after the letter lands. Garrett, thank you. For believing me. For being in this with me. Thank you for finally fighting back. The line went still, leaving me alone with the muted television and something I hadn't felt in a long time, genuine relief. My son saw what Derek had done. He understood it clearly, he wasn't conflicted about it, and he was willing to rearrange his life to back me up. Claudia might still be sorting out where her loyalties fell, but Garrett's clarity gave me what I needed to carry this through to wherever justice landed. The demand letter would arrive tomorrow morning. By Wednesday, we'd know whether Derek intended to repay or fight in court. Either way, I wouldn't be standing alone. Tuesday afternoon, I chose the Broad Street Cafe in Worthington. Neutral ground where Claudia could speak without Derek standing behind her. The familiar neighborhood spot felt safe and manageable, a long way from the upscale venues where she'd grown used to a standard of living that wasn't hers to afford. Claudia's call that morning had been brief but pressing. Dad, can we meet? I found something terrible. She arrived looking wrecked, eyes red-rimmed from what had clearly been a sleepless night, hands gripping a manila folder as though it held evidence against her. The careful makeup and designer clothes were gone, just jeans, a plain sweater, and the raw look of a woman who'd found out the foundation of her marriage was built on someone else's money and lies. I went through Derek's home office last night, she said, sliding the folder across the table. After you left Sunday, I couldn't stop turning it over, so I kept looking. What was inside were documents she'd never laid eyes on. Gambling receipts from casinos in Ohio and Kentucky. Restaurant bills for expensive meals with people she'd never met. Personal luxury shopping, all of it paid for, during the weeks immediately following our family emergency conversations. Dad, it's worse than we thought. He wasn't just redirecting the money to different places. He was inventing the crises to generate it. A receipt from Hollywood Casino, Columbus, showed $1,500 in losses on the exact day I'd wired money for Lily's medical specialist appointment. Others showed regular weekly visits. Thousands gone while he performed the role of a financially stretched family man for his father-in-law. Claudia, when did you first start feeling that something wasn't right? Honestly, last year when he came home with that watch. I asked where the money came from, and he said a work bonus, but I phoned his company. There had been no bonuses that quarter. She pressed a napkin to her eyes. I was afraid to look any further, afraid of what I'd find. The cafe sounds fell away around us as she went on. I've been living with a stranger dad. Every story he told me, every crisis we weathered together, it was all calculated manipulation, engineered to drain money from you. What are you planning to do? Your lawyer walked me through my options when I called her this morning. If I testify against Derek in court, I can divorce him and walk away with full custody of Lily. She told me, having a witness who turned up additional evidence makes your position even stronger. I reached across the table and covered her trembling hands with mine. Claudia, I need you to hear this. I'm not trying to tear your marriage apart. Derek did that on his own. I know Dad. I've known for months that something was deeply fundamentally wrong. I just couldn't bring myself to admit I'd married someone who'd look me in the eye and lie while robbing my father. She sat up straighter, her resolve settling into place. Lily deserves more than a father who treats family as a personal bank account. The afternoon light moved through the Broad Street Cafe windows as our conversation pressed deeper. The other customers left us alone, reading the weight of what was being said. Coffee went cold as Claudia emptied out 8 years of buried doubts and dismissed warning signs. There's something more, she said, drawing out her phone. I recorded Derek last night while he was on the phone, calling in favors about emergency loans. He was telling people that his unhinged father-in-law was making false accusations and he needed funds to fight off legal harassment. Even in the middle of a crisis, Derek was spinning a version of events that put him in the victim's chair. But this time, Claudia had captured his lies on record instead of swallowing them. I'm calling Paula Renwick tomorrow morning, Claudia announced. I want to formally cooperate with your case. Full testimony, additional evidence, anything that helps get back what he took from you. Walking to our cars, Claudia embraced me with a warmth I hadn't felt from her in years. The daughter who'd been steered into doubting her father's generosity was becoming the woman ready to stand in court against her husband's systematic theft. Dad, I'm sorry it took me this long to see what was right in front of me. What matters is seeing it now. She drove off toward New Albany and the hard conversation with Derek that would make the end of their marriage official. I drove home, knowing tomorrow would bring the certified demand letter that would force Derek to choose between paying back what he'd stolen and facing criminal prosecution. For the first time, the whole family was standing on the right side of this. Wednesday afternoon. I was in my kitchen finishing a quiet lunch when the phone rang exactly when I'd expected it to. Derek's name on the screen confirmed that Paula Renwick's certified demand letter had found its mark. Claudia had already called that morning with news. Dad, I spoke to your lawyer. The demand letter hit Derek's office at 10 a.m. His secretary signed for it in front of several co-workers, a public moment of embarrassment at his workplace. Precisely the kind of professional humiliation that would crack Derek's carefully maintained image. I picked up on the third ring. Vince, we need to talk. Derek's voice carried a tension I'd never heard in it before. The smooth sales manager confidence was gone, swapped out for barely leashed panic. This legal garbage has gone far enough. I switched on my phone's recording function, same as I always did when Derek's games were in play. What legal garbage would that be? Don't act like you don't know. Your lawyer's absurd demand letter showed up at my office this morning. $112,000. That's insane. Those were family gifts. Help between relatives. Interesting way to frame it. The documented evidence points to systematic fraud built on fabricated emergencies. Look, I'll admit some of those requests weren't entirely on the level, but every dollar went to family needs. The BMW keeps Lily safe on the road. The home improvements benefit the whole household. Derek was still running his routine, even cornered by comprehensive proof. Casino receipts and high-end restaurant tabs didn't pass as family expenses, but he'd spent years buying into his own invented story. Derek, you have 24 hours to return the full amount or face civil and criminal charges. No extensions, no payment arrangements, no bargaining. 24 hours is not possible. I need time to sell off assets, sort out financing. The BMW still carries an outstanding loan. I can't get full value for it. His panic was handing me useful information. The luxury items had been financed on debt, not real wealth. Derek had been running a leveraged life funded by my retirement savings while barely keeping up with payments on things he couldn't actually afford. Then you should have weighed that before spending 4 years inventing family emergencies. Fine. You want to blow up Lily's stable home over money. You want your granddaughter to watch her parents' marriage fall apart because you're too stubborn to accept a reasonable repayment arrangement. The same old pressure tactics using Lily as an emotional crowbar. But this time, I had his threats on record. Paula Renwick had explained how attempts at emotional coercion only reinforced our case rather than hurting it. Lily's stability was never at risk from honest financial management. Honest? You've been monitoring our family's spending, tracking every purchase like some obsessive bookkeeper. Claudia's frightened of you now. She thinks you've gone off the rails over a little retirement money, another lie. Claudia had already committed to testifying against him. Derek was working with the wrong picture, still convinced he could pull the family's strings through deception. $112,000 by 5 p.m. Tomorrow, or Paula Renwick files civil recovery and criminal fraud charges with the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office. This is extortion. I'll countersue for harassment, emotional distress, and false accusations. With what money, Derek, your credit is destroyed. Your professional standing is in ruins, and your wife has uncovered proof of years of systematic lying. Dead quiet. The office background noise vanished, which told me he'd stepped somewhere private. When his voice came back, it carried the sound of defeat, wrapped in one last burst of desperate anger. You'll regret this, Vince. When Lily grows up knowing her grandfather tore her family apart over money, you'll regret every last penny. The line cut off with a hard click. I sat at my scarred oak kitchen table, studying the recording that had captured another 37 minutes of Derek's threats and admissions. By 5 p.m. tomorrow, he'd either produce payment no one believed he could manage or face the legal reckoning he'd spent 4 years earning. Paula Renwick's phone rang twice before she answered. Vince, I was expecting to hear from you. How did he take the demand letter? Exactly the way you predicted. Desperate threats, impossible promises, and blanket denial of any responsibility. Perfect. That confirms our approach. See you in court if he doesn't pay. The demand letter had been delivered. The terms were clear. Tomorrow would bring either a settlement or the start of legal proceedings that would lay bare every lie Derek had told across 8 years. Either way, the systematic theft was finally coming to an end. Derek failed to produce the payment by the deadline, exactly as everyone had expected. Paula Renwick filed civil recovery proceedings the following Thursday, and criminal fraud charges were submitted to the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office by Friday afternoon. The next 6 weeks moved with a legal precision I found deeply satisfying. Claudia's divorce proceedings ran alongside my civil case, her testimony delivering devastating evidence of Derek's calculated deception. Garrett flew in from Seattle twice, offering moral support and a professional credibility that carried weight with the court. The hearing arrived in early May downtown at the Franklin County Courthouse. Derek showed up with a public defender. Private representation was beyond what he could afford. The confident sales manager he'd once been had buckled completely under the weight of the documented evidence. Judge Okafor reviewed our materials with methodical attention. 8 years of bank statements, receipts confirming luxury spending during manufactured crises, recorded conversations in which Derek used threats of limited family access to coerce continued payments. Claudia testified about finding the hidden gambling receipts and the fabricated emergency communications. Mr. Colton, Judge Okafor, said this is a textbook case of financial elder abuse carried out through deliberate, sustained deception. The evidence is overwhelming and cannot be disputed. The ruling left no room for argument. Full restitution of $97,000 plus accrued interest and legal fees amounting to an additional $18,000. When Derek claimed he couldn't pay the court-ordered asset seizure beginning with the BMWX7, followed by wage garnishment until every dollar was recovered. Derek's parents came to collect him from Ohio the following week, a 40-year-old man returning to Terre Haute with his reputation in pieces and his marriage finished. Claudia received full custody of Lily, while Derek's visitation was scaled back to supervised visits requiring advanced scheduling. By June, our family had started to heal. Claudia moved into a smaller house in Worthington, closer to me, financed by the BMW's liquidation value. Lily slowly came to understand that her parents' separation wasn't something she'd caused, and that her grandfather's absence from the birthday party had never been a rejection of her. So, June 20th, 3 months after the disastrous restaurant party, I hosted Lily's proper birthday celebration in my backyard garden. No catering companies or hired entertainment, just family around a homemade cake that Claudia and I had baked together that morning. Garrett had flown in for the weekend, his being there, giving Lily the complete family she needed to understand something important. Love didn't need to come with a price tag. We gave her the art supplies I'd always meant to give her. $200 worth of professional art supplies for Lily, paints, brushes, and canvas, and the excitement on her face was genuine. "Grandpa, look what I painted for you." Lily held up a watercolor showing 3 figures beside a river. her Claudia, and me. Can we go visit a real river tomorrow? Absolutely. Alum Creek Lake is only 30 minutes away. Claudia watched from the picnic table, the relief in her posture unmistakable. Dad, I don't have the words to thank you for fighting for the truth, for making sure Lily doesn't grow up thinking Derek's behavior was something to accept as normal. Protecting family is what grandfathers do. The afternoon sun came through the oak trees Irene had planted 20 years earlier, casting a natural warmth that no expensive venue could have replicated. Lily's laughter carried across the garden as she chased butterflies through roses that had grown untended since Irene's passing. Simple pleasures, honest connections, a genuine celebration of a child rather than a performance staged for social media and business contacts. Everything Derek's stolen money had supposedly bought delivered here authentically through love and attention. Garrett helped Lily hang her artwork on my refrigerator door, the same spot where her childhood drawings had gone up before Derek's manipulations began pulling our relationship apart. 3 generations together again, trust rebuilt on truth rather than wealth. As the evening crept in and Lily drifted off to sleep in Irene's old chair, Claudia and Garrett helped tidy up from our modest little gathering. No catering crew, no security detail, no invoices that would hollow out a retirement account through invented emergencies. Dad Garrett said quietly, "You did the right thing. Lily will grow up knowing her grandfather stood up for justice instead of looking the other way." I looked at my granddaughter sleeping soundly, surrounded by people who loved her, without conditions or hidden motives. The engineering problem was finally solved. Every variable had fallen into its correct place. Systematic pressure applied at exactly the right points. Justice secured through documented evidence rather than emotional leverage. Derek's theft was finished. Lily's innocence was protected. Our family was whole again. That backyard birthday party, Lily asleep in Irene's old chair, Claudia laughing, Garrett beside me in the evening light. That's the image I come back to when I need to remember why it was all worth it. This cost me more than money. It cost me 4 years of watching my daughter be slowly turned against me. It cost me a seat at my granddaughter's table. It cost me the quiet faith I'd placed in the idea that family meant the same thing to everyone. I believe God doesn't waste that kind of pain. The truth came out. The right people were protected, and what was built on deception could not stand. That's the lesson I carry now in this dad's revenge story, and it's the one I hope stays with you too. Here is what I'd tell anyone walking a similar road. Document everything. Generosity without a paper trail is just a gift to anyone willing to exploit your trust. When someone uses your grandchild as a weapon, that is not a family disagreement, that is a warning. Treat it like one. Patience and precision will outlast anger every time. Build your case quietly, then let the evidence do the talking. And if you ever find yourself wondering whether to act or let it go, ask yourself what the child watching you will remember. If this family revenge story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read them, and they matter more than you know. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe to Dad's Revenge so you never miss what comes next. Thank you for listening all the way through. Take care of yourselves and each other.